All right, let's get started. Hi, everybody. It's great to see folks here. People are rolling in as I speak, but we're going to get started because we have a packed agenda here. My name is Elizabeth Ralston, and I'm the founder and director of the Seattle Cultural Accessibility Consortium. I'm a white woman with short, wavy silver hair, and I'm wearing glasses and a blue shirt. And I wanted to let everybody know that live captioning is available. There's a CC button at the bottom that you can click on. You have to go to the more, the three dots, and click on that until you find the caption button. You can also use a stream text link, which has been emailed out to you before this. ASL interpreting is available. There's an interpreter who will be pinned. If you're having technical challenges, please let us know in the Q&A section. And there's a Q&A right in the navigation pane, so you should be able to see that. And Molly has just put in the stream text link in there. Thank you, Molly. Please mute your microphone when you are not speaking. Please put all your questions in the comments in the Q&A. The chat and emojis have been disabled so that we don't overload screen readers. So with that, let's move on to the next slide. Welcome to Advancing Blind and Low Vision Access in the Arts. I'm so excited to welcome you here to this program, our first program of the year, actually. And I apologize for the technical challenges that we had back in the April program. And I'm so glad that you came back and joined us. So let's talk about our mission. Our mission is to connect arts and culture organizations with the information and resources needed to improve accessibility for people of all abilities. And we want to do this by bringing people together from lived experiences to arts administrators, community members, people with disabilities, and so on and so forth, to have their voices be heard about how to make the arts sector more accessible to people with disabilities. And this program and other programs like the Deep Dive Day Conference that we have biannually are ways in which we can do that. I want to thank our funders and other supporters for Culture Arts Fund, Arts Raw, and the Office of Arts and Culture, and of course, individual donors like yourself. These are the ways that we can keep our mission going, is when we have supporters like you and these other amazing organizations. Thank you. And I would like to give a land acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge that we live, work, and play on the unceded and traditional territories of the Coast Salish peoples, and that we occupy this land. This acknowledgement does not take place of authentic relationships with indigenous communities, but served as a first step in honoring the land we are on, and we have provided some resources for you to learn more about this land acknowledgement and the Duwamish tribe and find out what indigenous land that you are coming from. I want to set the stage for this program. We want to make this a safe and a brave place because the fact that you're here is a big deal. Accessibility is everyone's job. And when we all come together like this, it's really important that we make this a really good, safe space. So we respectfully request that everyone research and share resources proactively in an effort to broaden our collective knowledge. Refrain from judgment. Speak your truth while knowing the truth of others may be different. Approach with curiosity. Recognize privilege in yourself and others. Accept that each person and organization operates at varying levels of accomplishment. Listen and pause to understand. Take responsibility for your contributions. Acknowledge that today's conversations may reveal bravery and also spark discomfort. Gestures of kindness and offers of assistance are strongly encouraged. And finally, I want to make sure that everyone takes care of their access needs, wherever they may be. Sometimes being in a virtual environment for a long time can be challenging, so please feel to take free to take care of yourself as needed. So today's agenda, we are going to welcome you, which we have just done. We will have a little mini lecture on arts access strategies for the blind low vision community and accessibility components by Laura Ferry. A panel discussion coming up after that. Q&A. So I encourage you to put all your questions in the Q&A box, and then we will wrap up. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome Laura Ferry, and you will have all the bios of all the panelists, the moderator, and presenter in the email that we sent out. So Laura, please take it away.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Elizabeth. My name is Laura Ferry, and I am a white woman of a certain age. I have blonde, gray hair, and I'm wearing a peach-colored linen shirt with a green scarf with polka dots. And I'm going to talk to you about audio description. So, audio description is audio narrated details of essential visual elements for blind and low vision individuals. There are basically 4 arts access strategies for communicating these descriptions. So the first one is audio described live performances. In this situation, a skilled audio describer provides key visual information for patrons of theater, dance, music, and other live events. The description is relayed live in the moment as the performance transpires. So, when the villain brandishes a knife or the stooge slips on a banana peel, blind and low vision audiences can gasp or laugh along with the rest of the audience. The second arts access strategy is docent-led audio described tours. In this situation, trained docents provide detailed descriptions of objects in museums, galleries, and other spaces, including info on content as well as size and color. The third is tactile experiences. And this service is hopefully combined with docent-led tours. In this situation, blind and low vision patrons have the opportunity to touch objects and items that connect to the exhibition or performance. In museums, these can be fibers or textiles used in the construction of art pieces, and for performance touch tours, these items often include costumes, props, set pieces. I was at a touch tour at the Paramount where they actually brought out lighting, fixtures. All of these elements might include touching, feeling, descriptions of the different objects. And other elements might include tactile maps of the space, which can be very helpful for navigation. And finally, pre-recorded audio description. So pre-recorded audio description is primarily used for films, television, and, believe it or not, some Broadway productions. This description is pre-recorded and integrated into the programs and is accessible on demand. Museums do often have audio guides to specific exhibits, but these are usually designed for the hearing public and often do not provide the necessary details for the BLV community. There is more audio described content available online and with apps such as Bloomberg. And finally, in the past year, Seattle Cultural Accessibility Consortium has provided training to a new cohort of audio describers to supplement the work of the existing describers in this town. There are now more people trained and available to provide this essential work. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Troy Coleman. I am a mixed race individual with salt and pepper hair, wearing a blue polo. It's wonderful to see so many people here today. This is a subject matter that's near and dear to my heart as someone that's worked in and out of the arts and culture my entire career. I also serve on one of the grants panels for Arts Fund, and Elizabeth and I have worked for we'll just say many years now, in accessibility work together and done many presentations together. Today we have some incredible panelists who want to share their experiences. I would also share that I am legally blind, so this is lived experience and dear to my heart, also as a patron. So today we're going to be talking a lot about the visitor journey, what happens before, what happens as we embark for a visitation or a performance, what happens at an event and thereafter. So let's go ahead and jump in. I want to make sure to uh, uh, introduce. We have three panelists today, and those panelists would be Jacob Camayano. And Jacob, I apologize if I've butchered your last name, even though we used to work together. Jacob, I worked together at Lighthouse for the Blind.
Yes.
And then Finn Painish, welcome, Finn, and Sherry Richards. Thank you to each of you for being here today and contributing to this incredibly important conversation. So let's go ahead and get started on the journey, and let's have a quick discussion on what's important to you as a patron, as you're encountering an art form, whether that be performance, whether that be a museum. And I'd like to go ahead and start by calling on Finn.
Hello, this is Finn. I'm so sorry. Could you repeat the question? I was being spotlighted and all the pop-ups were interfering.
I understand, not a problem. What's important to you as someone that is blind, when you're encountering an art form, when you're engaging with an art form, what's important to you?
The the main thing that I want out of an experience with the arts is to experience it with everyone around me and to experience to be able to engage with the material. Like Laura was saying, react to something funny or um, be introspective about an art piece. So um, just be able to be as engaged as all the sighted people around me.
Completely agree and share in that experience. And what about you, Sherry? Can you share what's important to you and what draws you into engagement?
Sure. So I think when I think about arriving at an art exhibit or a museum or a symphony hall, and I frequently go to the symphony and opera, so those are pretty common for me. Um, the first thing I want is just to feel like I'm welcome there, to have, you know, some to for it to be easy for me to find someone who can assist me with whatever it is I might need assistance with, whether it's going to the restroom because I've had a long bus ride or finding my seat or whatever it happens to be. So that's probably my very first uh, important thing to think about, because if I feel like I'm lost and I feel like I'm lost in the crowd and I don't know where to go and all of that really does pretty quickly ruin what would otherwise be a wonderful experience. Thank you.
Absolutely. Let me ask you, this is a slight deviation from the question, but I really like to hear from the three of you. Just really quickly answer. Do you often feel that, Jerry mentions feeling welcome. Do you often feel welcome when you're attending a performance, going to a museum? Just, you don't have to expand on the answer, but just curious to share with those that are attending so they understand your perspective.
For me,
Colin.
that would be not often.
Okay. What about you, Finn?
I would agree. On some occasions, it's an afterthought, and some occasions, it's not thought of at all, like access. So, I mean, it's a wonderful thing when it is thought of, but I almost wish it was less wonderful and more common.
How about you, Jacob?
Uh, yes, I agree with the other panelists. What do you call, if I could say, I've honestly been having a good experience at the Paramount. They were very attentive, and very welcoming. I mean, I haven't really had a bad experience, but I haven't been to any other facilities. I've been to the Fifth Avenue, but the accommodations weren't as what do you call focused on as they are now. So I'm curious to see of their improvements, but yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's really, and I would share that I'm in the same boat. It's a mixed bag. It depends on where I'm going. I think the visual arts have a lot to learn, but they're learning. I mean, I spent some time with the Henry Art Gallery, and there's a lot of effort within organizations to do more, and that's why we're hosting this event today. So let's go ahead and move on to the next subject, that next step in the journey, and what happens before the event, what happens before we go to the event. And we have some specific topics we're going to address, and I'll call on each of um, the panelists based on their input. So the first question has a relationship to doing with marketing and ticketing. And when planning to attend an event, the very first thing we need to do is consider what marketing communication strategies are going out. But let's discuss for initial contact for arts events, websites, social media. What do arts organizations need to take into consideration to make websites in that pre-event engagement for you more accessible? And I'm gonna start by calling on Sherry about this.
Okay, thank you. Um, so I remember days, and fortunately this has changed now, but I remember days when I was trying to select my symphony season pieces, concerts, and the brochure was in some format that was completely 100% not accessible to a screen reading software. And that was very frustrating because it meant that I had to rely on someone else. I don't remember if I probably did a combination of things, more than likely relied on a friend and then also just called and talked to the customer service people at the symphony. And when you do that, they're very kind, but I don't really want to say, can you read me all 60 concerts or however many there are? And then try to remember which ones I was interested in. So that has become much better. And I'm very pleased to say, so now I can actually go to the Seattle Symphony's website and I can read all about the concerts myself. It's completely accessible and I can make the choices, based on based on the input that I'm able to experience.
Are there any key considerations for online that we should let folks know to have consideration for? Are there things that help you or aid you that
So,
keep in mind?
so files that are, JPEGs or um, uh, not HTML, there's something else, are often problematic. There are better ways. There are ways now that they can be handled through sometimes AI and other things, but that means that the blind person has to know how to do that. One of the one of the difficulties about using any website as a blind person is if you don't use standard HTML type um, programming, then that uses headings and tables and all of those kinds of things. If you try to get too fancy, then there are going to be issues along the way. The other thing is it's really important if there's a photo or a design or anything like that to have a description attached to that. And I think Finn can speak better to that than I can about how that works. But even if it's a PDF document that say you've got a brochure that you want people to look at, if it's a PDF document, it needs to be correctly done, or it won't make any sense at all to a screen reader. So one of the things that I really encourage all of you to do is anytime you're working on your websites and you want them to be accessible, which hopefully is always, have somebody who is blind and low vision uses screen reading software, check it out, and they'll pretty quickly be able to tell you whether it works or not.
Absolutely. And you mentioned Finn. So
This is,
go ahead, Jacob. Do you have something you want to add?
oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, before Finn takes over,
Yeah.
simplification is very key for a blind person. There's different levels on technology literacy. I've been blind for 19 years, but I never learned how to use a computer or learn how to type until I went blind. And so technology is very challenging for me, even till today. I'm improving, but what do? They keep updating, improving, and changing stuff.
Yes.
And therefore, we got to keep relearning and just having a simple path constantly for a person like me is ideal. I'll go there every single time. You got my money, you got my attention. But if I got problems and I'm frustrated with it, then I'm looking elsewhere. But before that, I have to get sighted help. So it becomes challenging.
100% agree with that. Finn, you want to go ahead and jump in? Sherry had mentioned that you have further knowledge and background in this area, so I would love to hear from you as well.
Yeah, she mentioned me because I'm a young person. I'm in college, so I'm very connected on social media. So for me, that's how I stay connected with other people, but also learn about events that are happening. And that is true for a lot of young blind people because we do face a lot of isolation at times, and social media provides a platform to connect with others and again learn about what's going on in your community. So it's really important to be mindful of that people might just be hearing about your event on social media, so making sure all the information is readily available. Part of that is, like, for example, I use Instagram, and you might think that's challenging as a blind person because it's based on pictures, but with a screen reader, everything is turned into text as long as the text is actually there. So Sherry was mentioning images and having descriptions on social media and a lot of other places. That's called alt text, and so you just describe what's in the image, and say you're posting a poster for an upcoming performance. You'll have to include everything important that's on there. You might say, this is a picture of our cast dressed in 1920s costumes. And you'll say all the important information, the date and location, and anything that you have on that poster has got to be in the alt text. It's also really helpful to have that in the caption of the post. Sometimes I come across a post that seems to have a lot of information in the image itself, but the caption just says, please come to our show, we'd love to see you there, and that doesn't tell me anything. So if you're going to rely on images for your promotional material, making sure you have that alt text with descriptions. And like Sherry said, it's really great to have a blind person on hand to review that, to make sure it's not confusing or not too much or too little information. So yeah, that's how I learn about a lot of things, through social media and online.
I'd like to add one more quick thing.
Go ahead, Sherry.
One of the things that sometimes happens when someone's putting together a website and they don't really know much about accessibility is they'll hear about these accessible overlays that various companies sell. And just as a rule of thumb, the overlays are not very helpful. Sometimes they actually make things worse. So it's much better to deal with the website in a straightforward way. You know, working with someone who is aware of accessibility and how to create good um, websites.
And this
Great.
is Jacob.
Please,
Um,
Jacob, go ahead.
so, in comparison to Finn, I am one who is not on social media. So I can't just go on and see these posts and advertisements and whatnot. So I usually get my information from I think it's called Blind Connections. I'll get an email posting what the month's events might be as far as what's being presented. And then I can from there make a phone call, which is what I like to do to avoid the technology frustration. Sometimes I like just speaking to a live person and getting that information and making the connection and being able to be satisfied with my purchase, understanding that I'm going to go see a performance and I can hang up the phone and turn away and wait for that date. But yeah, just wanted to just throw that in there. Maybe it would be good to have a telephone sort of directory listing the month's events. Like the movie theaters that do and things of that sort. So.
Go ahead, Finn.
Yeah, something I wanted to emphasize that Jacob said was having a live person on available to call on the phone. I think a lot of companies recently have been trying to be hip with the times and include an AI. Um, I almost said person. It's not
Version of a
person.
live person.
Yeah, an AI version of a receptionist. And these can be helpful, but not in terms of accessibility. And they're not trained to know any information about, describing the route to the bathroom or any information that a human would. So just emphasizing that a real live person is always going to be much more helpful than AI.
Excuse me, Troy. It's Laura.
Go ahead.
Troy, it's Laura. Can we just ask Sherry to adjust her screen a little bit so we can see her face?
I'm not sure which way.
That's
You got
perfect.
it. You're
That's
Good.
perfect.
perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Thank
That's
you. Sorry to interrupt.
that's what happens when your moderator is also blind. I'm
That's
looking
true.
at multiple screens. So let's continue the conversation. This is great contact, and what I would like to emphasize to those that are attending is what you've heard is a spectrum of resources that are needed. There's not one answer for everybody. That we have to keep in mind that between Jacob, who is limited in technology, to Finn, who's using technology quite a bit, and Sherry's kind of in the middle. I'm kind of in that middle zone myself. Let's always keep that in mind. And that human contact, I can't emphasize it enough. You're going to hear that repeatedly, and it's something that all of us would say, please make that available in some capacity. And if nothing else, the day of, make it available because it is intensely frustrating when it's not. So let's move on to the day of the event and navigating our way to the event. And there's a lot of factors. So and it's a different beast. So how do you navigate using different modes of transportation? What organizations do you utilize to gain access? And again, this is kind of it's not a one size fits all. So I'll ask the panelists to kind of address this. And Jacob, you want to jump in and start off with, and how do you navigate to an event?
Yeah, sure. I commonly use access transportation. I am very capable of doing Metro Access, the Sounder, what have you. So Understanding that there's a noted pickup or drop-off spot at the venue or designated spot is very important. So I can understand the location and direction to say the entrance of the venue. And like I said as well, I do catch the city metro. And so, as a matter of fact, for the first time, I did so just a couple of weeks ago, heading out to the Paramount. And I realized that it's just one bus stop from Auburn, one bus, so 150, straight to Ninth and what's that, Ninth and Olive there. And the Paramount is just down the road. And so, just understanding, getting information on bus routes or bus stops that are near the facility to get a pre-hand idea of what my challenge is as far as getting to and from whatever venue I'm probably going to. That's my mode.
Uh, Jacob, can you share with the audience a little bit what Access is? I don't think everybody
Oh,
may know what Access is.
yes, of course. And forgive me to begin with. I apologize to my BLV audience. I'm 6 foot tall, brown skin, Hawaiian, African American fellow with salt and pepper colored hair, skin tight haircut. I'm wearing a black polo shirt with a design I couldn't tell you what it is, and I'm sitting in my room. I got my back room door behind me, if you can see that. But so. Uh, Access is Access Transportation is a shared ride service that the city of Seattle provides for a disabled what do you call for the disabled community. Um, and basically, you schedule a ride 24 hours in advance. They will take you anywhere you need to go and bring you back to your home destination or where have you. It is a shared ride, so there are pickups and drop-offs in between, depending on where you're going and what they need to accommodate. Um, and that's pretty much the gist of what Access Transportation is.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Finn, I'll call on you next. Can you share
You're very
with
welcome.
us?
Yeah. So I also use public transportation, but that's my main form of transportation. So the buses, the light rail, stuff like that. And I think the main thing for um, arts organizations to remember is that um, it's not enough just to say, oh, there's buses nearby, or even you can take the 45, because then we get to the bus stop, and where do we go from there? So it's really important to say directions from the bus stop or the light rail station or whatever it is to get from there to the theater, for example. And another thing to remember is that there's certain visual landmarks that are really that make it super easy for sighted patrons to find where they're going, like a lit up marquee. But that's not something that a lot of BLV folks can access. So it's important to think about other landmarks, like certain turns, or maybe you'll hear a fountain along the way, or just be creative. And again, as it's been mentioned several times, just ask a blind person what they might need for those directions.
Good observation. I do want to make sure the audience understands there's a acronym being used to make sure you understand that we've heard BLV used a few times. It stands for blind and low vision, if you're wondering. Um, Laura, I wanted to bring you in really quickly in something near and dear to all of our hearts is the know before you go.
Yeah, so no, thank you. No before you go email is incredibly important for all audiences, but particularly for the blind and low vision audiences. So if in the information that our panelists have just discussed with you. You know, as Finn said, how to get from the light rail station to the theater. That kind of information, all of that can go in your Know Before You Go. So your Know Before You Go is an email that is usually sent out usually a week, sometimes a few days before the event, telling people about what's going on. It can be incredibly helpful to know, hey, there's a big rally going on. You may have to navigate through people to get to the theater. Just the up-to-date information that people might need to know to get to the space, but also very specific details that a member of the blind or low vision community may need to get to where you have to go. And if there's any other little details that you need, you put them in that email. People can read it ahead of time on their screen readers at their leisure. They're not stressed when they get there trying to pull it up. They have all the information at their fingertips before they go. So along with information about the show, you need that navigation information. And that's a Know Before You Go. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I would say Laura makes a very good point in that a lot of the benefits we're talking about for our community benefit all of your patrons, especially Know Before You Go information. Just think about what you might need when you're going, and this is always beneficial. So let's now move towards the venue itself and arriving at the venue. And really what I want to address is when you're arriving, what is important to you as a blind and low vision patron. Jacob, I'll call on you first. If you could give us what's beneficial to you.
Sure. I recently discovered what is beneficial to me. I was arriving at honestly Paramount, and they really good service there. But as I got there and I was crossing the street from across the block where the theater is, as I stepped onto the ramp coming from across the street, before I can even figure out which way to go, the person came up to me and said, "Hey, how are you today? Are you here for the blah 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 show?" And I was like, "Oh yes." I said, "Oh, come this way." And it totally eliminated me having to figure out where the entrance to the theater was. And so I thought that was very, very helpful, very unexpected. And so now it's like whenever I go, I'm kind of expecting someone to catch me before I get to the entrance. But as a blind person, when you get mobility training somewhere, it becomes familiar. And so you're able to get to where you need to go once you're aware of it. But just having someone coming up just to greet you and say, "Hey, come on, I got you." It shows that it shows concern. It shows that they want you to have a good experience and enjoy the show to the fullest. And so to me, initially, that's a great start. And so I believe having spotters, if you're able to acquire the volunteers, just to be a lookout. As a matter of fact, when I just went to the Paramount to see the Blue Man show, and unexpectedly, I've been familiar. I'm sort of familiar with it now. So I'm going to make my way. And unexpectedly, I was given a personal what do you call escort, and the person stayed with me the entire time. I'm thinking nowadays we got short. People are short staffed everywhere, and just the fact that they took the time out to get a special person, and I'm talking, they picked this person because it's what he loves to do. And what an experience. I had nothing I needed to worry about. He had my back, got me in, got my ticket, helped me get my ticket, took me in, sat me down, let me know where everything was, made sure somebody else was watching out for me while he had to take off and then returned when the show was done and helped me back out directly to my ride. And honestly, you can't get a better experience than that. So
That's incredible. Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Jacob. Now I'm going to the Paramount more often. Sherry, can you jump in?
Yeah, I can't say I've ever had an experience that great. I'm jealous.
You gotta know
I
Jake
think,
a little closer.
well, he's better looking than I am. What can I say?
Oh my.
Anyway, I think that even if there's not enough people to to assign a volunteer or whomever to be a spotter to help blind and low vision people find entrances and seating and so forth. Even having someone at the desk at the ticket counter or somewhere central like that who knows how to explain in a way that makes sense something about the locations of the restrooms or the food or whatever you might be interested in. Even that much helps a lot. I think one of the things that the sighted world may not think about is how much stress we generally feel when we're in a public place, in a crowded public place, and it's one that we're not familiar with. And so that does detract from the overall enjoyment of the experience, even though usually the experience makes up for it at some point along the way. But yes, having some human help to whatever degree the venue can do goes a long way.
Carrie, do you use a guide dog?
I do. I also sometimes go with a cane, and sometimes I have a friend or spouse with me. So,
any considerations that we want to make sure to mention around bringing guide dogs or having guide dogs?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. I'd forgotten that part. Yes, one of the interesting things that I've discovered over the years is that venues assume people with guide dogs will want to sit at the end of the aisle. Oftentimes that's not a good idea, because if the dog is out in the aisle, people are going to trip over it, and that's not good for the dog. It's not good for the patrons either. So a lot of aisles are very narrow in some of our older theaters, especially. So talking with someone who has a dog about, maybe the best seating for them and the dog, if they're buying a ticket, and that's, the time to consider that, that would be helpful. Many dogs are really good about, sliding under the theater seat and just being quiet and not getting in anybody's way. And we all love those, but they're not all that calm and able to curl up that small and all of that. So that needs to be taken into consideration. There was something else. Oh, the other thing I would mention is when you're either assisting a BLV person to their seat, or you're helping them purchase a ticket and seating is an issue, don't assume that they can't climb stairs or don't want to climb stairs. Many of us are very good stair climbers. I live in a 3-story house, so I climb stairs all the time. So sometimes, that the sound may be better on an upper level, depending on what you're listening to or what you're attending. So just don't make that assumption. It's always fine to ask, which level the person wants to be on, even if an elevator's not available. You just would let them know that there's no elevator if there isn't. So that's it, I think.
Great. Thank you, Sherry. Finn, you want to jump in?
Yeah, some of it is just echoes of what Jerry and Sherry and Jacob have said. I think having assistance and having people who are just available is always going to be really helpful, especially for finding a seat. I haven't come across any seats in a theater that have Braille on them, so knowing finding your seat can be very difficult, especially if you have a ticket that's not accessible, like maybe it's a paper ticket with very small print. So having someone who's available to take you to your seat, or to give you at least directions, like it's going to be 10 rows down and on the left and 3, like it can get pretty complicated, even just with instructions. So it would be really great to have people available to help. And if possible, consider adding Braille to the backs of the seats.
And let me mirror that as one of my number one stressors is finding my seat, especially if I'm alone. In something like Benaroya Hall, it's a nightmare. So I appreciate having people on board. So I mirror that with all of our participants today. Let's move on to, again, continuation at the event. We're at the program. Let's talk about accessing the program itself and what are you looking for as a blind patron and guest attendee? Sherry, you want to jump in here?
Yes, I think for me the well, I love a combination. So I said that I'm a regular opera goer, Seattle Opera, and um, they now have a Braille program, um, which is wonderful because during intermission or even if I'm really quiet flipping pages, even during the performance, I can actually read about who, the artists are. And that's been really fascinating for me because, up until just a couple of years ago or 3 years ago, whenever they started having Braille programs, I was not able to do that. Um, and then also having an electronic program that is, either sent out with the email or available on the website and easy enough to find is also very helpful. So one thing I have experienced at least once was being told, "Oh, here you can just click on this QR and it'll take you right to it." Well, first of all, finding a QR code when you're blind doesn't work very well. Um, and then, second of all, when I did that, it took me to an inaccessible program. So, again, accessibility with how it's formatted is super important.
Very true. Jacob, how about you?
Uh,
Access programs.
yeah, I'm not an avid Braille reader, so I'm a little jealous, Sherry. But I need to get online and access something that way um, prior to the show, for my understanding and awareness. So that works best for me. I just use Braille for practical reasons, and so I would like to have a Braille sheet in front of me while I'm during the show, so I could do exactly what Sherry does. But like I said, I'm not that versed. I'll just get frustrated, so I just don't do it. So yeah, something on a website that I can access through an email with all that information would be great for me.
I too enjoy having access ahead of time. I'm sure all of us really appreciate that. What I want to remind though our attendees today that if you do have questions in the navigation bar under the ellipses that says more, under that tab, under that particular navigation, there's a Q&A button. So if you have questions, please be sure to drop your questions in the Q&A so that we can look at those and ask those towards the end of our program today. I'm going to continue to move us forward and let's talk a little bit about audio description, but I'm going to switch it to be less tactical and more about your experience. I'd love it if each of you would share with us, tell us about an audio description live performance that you really enjoyed and really engaged with and why. And let's start with Jacob on this.
Oh, okay. Sure. Let's see here. My first enjoyable audio description performance was the Nutcracker. I went ahead and saw that at the at the Paramount, and I love a good describer because um, what I look for is for the description to be totally grasping my attention and sort of pulling me out of my seat. That's what lets me know that I'm getting a good show, and I'm enjoying myself. what do you call the describer for Nutcracker was just elegant in her descriptions and very fluent and very just it just flowed with emotion, just flowed with the production. And it got me to a point where my neighbor beside me had to tell me to keep quiet because I was reacting. Her description was so good, I was reacting that way out loud, and I didn't know it. Um, and so I just totally love that show. I've only seen a Nutcracker on TV, and so that was a very good experience for me. Um, on the other hand, I have seen a couple of others, Life of Pi and a couple of others, but this describer was different. She just didn't have that emotion in her voice. Was very seemed anxious and choppy and very indescriptive, if I could say. So very short with her descriptions instead of adding a couple of more words instead of just a name um, in relation to what's going on stage. Um, let's see here. Another one, like I said, I went to see the Blue Man. Blue Man was great. And it's really because the describer is very elegant in her language and fluency. And so I know not every describer is going to be the same, but honestly, I've come to a point where when I look to see a show, the next a very important thing I'm going to do is look to who's describing it. Because if it's a describer I'm familiar with and I'm not happy with her descriptions, I'm not going to go. So yeah, that's where I'm at with that.
Great. Thank you. Sherry?
So, two things came to mind while Jacob was speaking. One is I've been a part of a blind and low vision book group for many, many years. And I think almost all of us in the group agree that if the book isn't being read by a person that reads it well and has a pleasant or an appropriate kind of voice for the story, we're probably not going to like the book as much as we would have otherwise. So there is a lot to be said for the describer. I will also say, though, that all of us being humans and all of us being very different, the describer that Jacob loves might be one that I don't like, or vice versa. So there's no one size fits all on that either. Um, and yeah, that makes it all very complicated. Um, I think one of my favorite shows that I went to a year, maybe 2 years ago now, I'm not sure, I lose track of time, was at McCaw Hall with Seattle Opera when they did the Magic Flute, the most recent version of it. And I had heard the music, of course, a lot, but I'd never really heard the story described as it went along and the scenery. And I was just blown away. It was just the, music that was almost boring in a way because I'd heard it so many times, all of a sudden had a whole new significance. And I really enjoyed that show a great deal.
Wonderful.
Hello, I'm going to jump in real quick. This is the voice of Marley, just to flag for us that it is 1:24, and there are a couple of questions coming into the chat about museums, and I know that that's coming up next on our list of questions for the panelists. So in the interest of time, I'm maybe just going to ask if we can jump into a little bit about museums. There's some questions here about what the ideal museum experience would be like and what materials museums can provide to make BLV visitors feel more welcome and included.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and jump forward to that. And what I'd love to have each of you do is share a positive experience with the museum and what made that such a positive experience. And I'd like to start by calling on Finn.
Sure, yeah. Um, I spent a lot of time in museums. My sister's an art history major, so she absolutely loves museums, but I've really struggled because most of the time I'm just sort of standing there. And then sometimes if there's my mom will act as my audio describer, and I absolutely love that, but it's a challenge. Her voice gets tired. I mean, if we had something there that would be if we had something there that would actually and a real audio describer, that would make a huge difference. And um, I went a couple months ago to the Henry Art Gallery and did experience some aspects that made it a lot more enjoyable for me. There wasn't any audio description, but there for some of the art, which was sort of unconventional materials that were used, like found art, they included a little container of the materials so that you could feel what it was. So, like bits of rubber and whatever else was included in the art, you could feel it, and that made a difference to me because I could imagine what the art might look like with the differences in texture and that sort of thing. Of course, there were a lot of things I would have added to that, but I think people forget about the tactile experience and how important that is. They might just think, oh, got to translate visual to audio, and I think the tactile experience is super crucial for blind folks.
Great. And Sherry, can you share with us?
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with what Finn just said about the tactile experience. It's all about the tactile for a totally blind person, especially one who's been blind since birth or near birth. Um, I think one of the best museum experiences I had was several years ago when I went to the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, and um, I don't even think I called ahead to say I'm coming. I think I just showed up, if I remember correctly, and asked, do you have anything tactile? Do you have anything I can enjoy? And they said, well, actually, yes. We have a docent here that can take you to um, our sculpture, and you can't touch all of them, but you can touch many of them. And that was just a really, really fun experience for me. Um, the only better than that I can think of was a museum in Paris where there wasn't all of this squeamishness about touching things. And so I really was able to touch some very, very old ancient art, which was amazing because that would never happen here in the US. But if you cannot let someone touch the real McCoy, so to speak, then replicas or something resembling a replica that they can touch and they can hold in their hands does go a long way to helping us understand the art.
Absolutely. And Jacob, would you share with us your
Yeah,
experience?
absolutely. I had a very interesting art experience. I grew up in Honolulu, Hawaii, and went blind there, obviously. And there was an artist, I can't remember her name, but anyway, she was very interested in the blind community and immersed herself and traveled throughout the Hawaiian Islands to have discussions with blind folks, to photograph them and gather their stories. And so what she did was her idea was to gather a collection of these stories and present them in a museum. And so, we were curious as to how is this going to work. So what she did was she took our photos, blew them up, beautiful photos. She was a very good photographer. And then she would also have it embossed. I think that's the word. Or yeah, so that the actual photo was a tactile picture that you could actually put your hands on and get a mind's eye glimpse of what that photo might look like. And as well, she had a braille display of each person's story posted with the photo. And beside that, she had an MP3 player that you could press, and it would repeat that story that was brailled out. Um, initially for deaf and blind patrons, that might have a chance to experience that. So my photo, along with two others, was chosen to be displayed in the um, Honolulu Arts and Craft Museum there in Hawaii, which was a great experience for me. I just yeah, I was overwhelmed with emotion about that. That was wonderful.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that with us. So we're coming up on 1:30, and we want to make sure there is time to answer any questions that we have. So I'm going to turn this over to Marley and Laura, who are going to be able to facilitate the Q&A portion of this. And from me, I thank everyone who's in attendance today to learn more about how to make things accessible.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Hello, this is Marley. I am a white person with long dark hair and large glasses. I'm a committee member for the SCAC, and we've got a good number of questions here in the Q&A. So panelists, if you could do your best to give us some more concise answers to these questions, hopefully we can get through as many of them as possible, because there's some really great ones in here. To start, here's one that I suspect perhaps you will all agree on. For an audio description experience, is a human audio describer better than AI? Does it make a difference? And with the symphony in particular, what kind of audio would be helpful? Finn, will you start us off?
Sure. I mean, like I mentioned early on, human is always better than AI because of that interpretation of art that is so human, and I wouldn't trust AI to be part of I guess participate in the experience of art the same way that a human describer would.
This is
Laura.
Jacob. I agree. I don't believe that AI could actually keep up with the impromptu what do you call actions, so that the blind user could get maybe the laughter or the sigh the same time as the sighted audience are getting it. It seems like AI is kind of delayed unless it's pre-recorded or made to the show, I would think. I don't think you could get the same experience.
Yeah, it's interesting because I agree mostly, but I think there are instances when AI is just fine. And but when it comes to artistic things, I think having the human emotion is definitely going to be a better fit. And to the last part of that question, I didn't quite understand about the symphony, unless unless there's um, artwork that they're showing as part of the visual part of the symphony. I don't feel the need for any description. I'm there for the music. That's me.
This is Laura. I'm going to jump in for a minute just to say, as far as the symphony goes, thank you, Sherry, for answering that. But I just want to let you know that I just audio described at the Gorge. I just audio described for Brandi Carlile. So you can have audio description for concerts that include different acts, where there's costume changes, where there's interaction between people, where there's things to talk about in between the music. You definitely don't want to step on the music, but if there's interactive parts of the show that especially that the sighted audience is really enjoying, having a describer there to share that would be incredible.
Yeah.
Then
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree with both sides. I think I don't see any need for audio description at the symphony because it's just people standing or sitting playing instruments, and that's wonderful, and the emphasis is on the music. But I do agree, like for a concert, like I've been at several concerts for artists that I know that they're dancing or that they're wearing something interesting, or that, it's just something is happening that I'm missing out on. So I do agree that it's important for concerts, but I don't see any need for it at the symphony.
Great. We also have a question that says, we've had people ask us, and this individual is from the Henry Art Gallery, ask us about talking signage. Do any of you have particular thoughts or feedback on that?
You mean like ASL? Talking signage?
No, I know a little bit about it, but I haven't really experienced it all that much. If the signage um, is triggered by the person, the person's presence, that would probably be fine and make sense. If there's a QR code that you have to point at, forget it. Doesn't work.
Just so I understand, are these audio signs? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, that's the way I interpreted the question.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
So this is Laura. So one thing I did experience at Pearl Harbor, believe it or not, when I was touring Pearl Harbor, it was triggered. So you had a device on, and as you walked, when you got to a certain spot, it triggered the audio that you heard. I don't know if that's what they're referring to. That could be very impactful. That could really work. Because then you wouldn't have to have a specific journey. I think one of the challenges of audio description, recorded audio description in museums, is that people can have, their traffic pattern could be different, that their journey could be very different. Not to say that the audio description at Pearl Harbor was appropriate for people who are blind and low vision. I mean, that's super, really, really important to stress, that just because somebody is describing there's audio in a museum, a lot of times they're talking about the paint, they're talking about the artist, they're talking about the concept, the theme, whatever. They're not describing what the painting looks like. And so it needs to be really specific to the BLV community.
A question we had that was specifically for Jacob was because he didn't get to answer the first question. So Jacob, what do you want when you engage with artwork?
I want to be able to, I want a tactile experience when I engage with artwork, first of all. I could totally accept just a description of something, which I could appreciate, but a tactile experience is above all. And then I guess the fluency of a museum. I'm not even exactly sure why I'm saying that, but just an easy flow of experiencing art. That'd complete my answer.
And this is Laura again. Another thing that museums might think about is adding audio components. So there are museums, I've been to museums all over the world actually, but when there is an audio component, you're at Ellis Island and you can lift a headset and you can hear the oral history. That is a way that a blind or low vision person is literally, they're right there with those immigrants. So, having audio components as well as visual can be very, very inclusive of this community.
And again, back to the tactile, I went to a museum here in Seattle that was about the gold rush. And, they have bars of gold that everybody can look at, but they don't even have a replica that I could touch. And that just sort of blew me away. It's like, really, that would kind of be the easiest thing in the world to make and to have. But no, it wasn't there. So, so often the tactile gets totally left out of things, and it's absolutely the most important feature for a blind person.
Hello, everybody. This is Elizabeth. We have come to the end of our session. We have, a bunch of other questions, but unfortunately, we ran out of time. But we have taken down your questions, and hopefully, we'll have a chance to answer some of them. Please stay on for just a few more moments. I have some exciting announcements, but first, please fill out our survey. We always are seeking to improve and would love your feedback. And I want to thank everybody for showing up and thank all our presenters and the moderator and panelists, interpreters and captioner for making this a really stellar, amazing panel and program. I really would love to have you continue to support accessibility in the arts. And thank you to everybody who donated. When you signed up, there was a way to donate. It's not too late. If we can go to the next slide, please. It's not too late to donate. So you can hold your camera up to this QR code, and we will put the link in the Q&A, and you will have to copy it into your browser. But if everybody donated $10 to $50, that would really go a long way to supporting our programs. Next slide. So as Laura mentioned at the beginning, we did an audio description training program last year. We have some amazing new audio describers who are just starting to get out there and help the arts sector become more accessible to blind and low vision folks. We're looking for organizations interested in having audio describers describe your shows, events, and exhibits. And SCAC will do some cost sharing to make this possible. And here you can see an image of the trainees and the trainer. And we did this training at Jack Straw Cultural Center. So please contact us at seattlecac@gmail.com, and we can start to have that conversation. Even if you're not sure, let's have a conversation. And I want you to save the date. We're having a summer program in honor of the 36th anniversary, another Lunch and Learn. We've decided as an organization we feel it's important to do a fundamentals of accessibility for those who are new or for those who want a refresher. So it's going to be a great presentation on what accessibility is and the different components of accessibility that organizations should be thinking about. And that's going to be virtual July 22nd from 12 to 1:15. So I hope to see many of you there. So to get involved, stay involved, please sign up for our newsletter. That's the best way to stay on track with what we're doing. You can like us on Facebook. Again, we're going to send out the slide deck afterwards, so with a longer version with more information, and you'll have that at your fingertips. I really would love some sponsors for the 2027 Deep Dive Day Conference, which will be next year, and for future programs. If your organization is interested in partnering with us, this is another way that sustains our small organization when we can partner with the community to move forward in creating amazing programs like this and making it possible for people from the disability community to have their voices heard. So thank you everybody for coming, and please feel free to reach out to us. And this recording will be available probably in the next week or so. And so thank you everybody for coming, and we'll see you hopefully in July.